Welcome, everybody. It's a big one. Season 11 playoffs. They're here. This is the reveal show. I got the Demons here with me. Demons, thanks for being here. Here's a real exciting one here.
I'm happy to be here, Johnny. I love talking football.
Oh, buddy, it's a big one. All right. We got the top eight and the bottom eight. No further delay. Let's announce the first matchup of the quarterfinals for season 11. Boom. We got the Bears versus the Wolverines. And believe it or not, but this is a rematch from last season.
Wolverines knocked him out in the quarterfinals, right?
That's right. So the Bears, they played them in the quarterfinals last year, and then as the sixth seed. You'll see as the graphic there on the left side. Typed it all out there last season, and the Wolverines were the third seed, and they beat them 31-17, and the Bears beat them back in Week 5, 31-14 as well. But besides that, they have not played well against the Wolverines historically, as they're only 2-3 versus the Wolverines all time and 0-1 in the playoffs. The Bears are 3-7 in the playoffs all time, and the Wolverines are 2-1 in the playoffs. The Bears have the number one ranked defense and the number one ranked rushing offense, number two for points per game, number three for turnovers, top three, top two in a lot of categories, even two in rushing defense. And this is a tough squad going against these Wolverines who just squeaked into the playoffs with a struggling offense. But their defense actually is definitely way above average. They've been playing great. They got Ty Ward back there and Howard Harvey and some really good um, defensive talent back there. Duke Warner. But yeah, how do you like this matchup here? This is the first one. What do you think, Demons?
Rematch from last year's quarterfinals. It's awesome. I'm just thinking about how many 7 and 8 teams right now just just got hurt realizing that it's not them in the first round of the playoffs.
Wow.
Like, what do we got? Yeah, we got the Scorpions,
Yeah.
Gators. I don't know who else
Monsters.
finished 7 and 8.
Monsters.
Monsters, Panthers.
Yeah.
The Panthers
A
finished 7 and 8. Yeah, like there's a lot of teams that could have had
lot of
that spot.
teams. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
and
so true.
they're now, yeah.
Yeah, no,
But hey, the Wolverines made it to the championship last year, and they're no slouch. And
yeah.
we all know Johnny Romolo can take over a game just like Mike Davis. It's this is going to be, I think this is going to be a back and forth running game battle, and great running offenses against two great running defenses. I expect this to actually be a low scoring one.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, look how strong the defenses are and how heavy they are on the passing, or are on the running game. Bears are first and the Wolverines are fourth, and both their passing games are not that high, 14th and 16th. That's last. It's only 16 teams. Keep in mind, and 14th ranked for the Bears is low, but they haven't needed it. But to the Bears' favor when they have needed it and when Mike Davis was in trouble, which wasn't too often this season. Jimmy Capps, the young quarterback, has been rising to the occasion. He had an incredible game against the Demons. He had a comeback drive against the Wildcats. They absolutely destroyed the Dragons. Um, the Bears are looking the best they've ever looked ever. And 12-3, first seed at home, first ever home game playoff game that they hosted in franchise history. This is a big one.
That's a fact. The Bears have played 10 playoff games and not one of them at home.
Oh well, they've always been the lowest seed, so I'm assuming they've
Huh.
never been a top four seed. I think the
That's
highest
crazy.
seed
that
they
many
ever
teams and
had
not one
was,
home game.
yeah, I think the highest seed they
I
ever
swear they
was
played a
sixth
home game
seed.
somewhere in there.
You think
Really?
so?
Okay. All right. Fair. Hey, maybe hey Johnny, you probably know better than me. That's a lot of games to not have a home game.
That's a good
Maybe this
point.
is what they need. Yeah.
That's a good point. I know they've been to the semifinals a few times. Uh, yeah, they were the away team here, 8-8, eighth seed. I think the highest seed they've ever been was sixth. Or no, they came in. Oh no, they did. They
Number
had
four
one
Bears
in
right
season
there.
6 right there. Yeah.
Yeah, they had 2 home games in season 6, so they very okay. I thought at one point they had
Okay.
because they've
Good.
made the playoffs a bunch, obviously with 10 games under their belt.
Right.
And anyway, that's not a big deal. It's
Oh, that's important.
maybe this is what they need to get through the Wolverines because last year Wolverines won at home. Bears got that advantage this time. They spent the season earning it, so hopefully they take advantage of it.
Yeah, this is the big matchup.
I
Is
think
like you said, Mike Davis versus Johnny Romolo. That's the big one that everyone's going to be keeping their eyes on.
I think Johnny Romolo, the Wolverines need to establish Johnny Romolo. They can't get him going early and they're struggling to get him going, then this one could be over quick. But if Johnny Romolo can get his wheels under him, then we've got a close game.
Well, that's a big one. All right, 3-game winning streak for the Bears coming into this, and the Wolverines losing, but still making it into the playoffs because they lost to the Vipers in the last week, which is incredible.
Yeah, and they lost in a game that they should have been treating as a must win.
Yeah,
And
still
so
got it.
that's not a good start for them.
Wow. All right. We'll move into the next game, which is the second seed versus the seventh seed. And that is the Wildcats versus the Piranhas. This is a big one.
2 original 8 teams
They
going
have
at
a
it.
they have a deep history. They've played 11 times in the regular season. And they
Pretty
also
much
have played,
500 against each other.
and they're really tight. This is the tightest matchup probably in the first round that have the deepest history. They've played twice in the playoffs, both won a game, and both times were in the quarterfinals. This will be the third time they meet in the quarterfinals. The Wildcats are 5-7 in the playoffs all time, and the Piranhas are 10-7. A ton of playoff experience as well.
10
Both
and
these
7.
teams. What's that?
Wow, 10-7. 10-7.
10-7. The Piranhas. I know. They dominated for quite a few seasons, man. And
Billy
also,
Bernstein.
yeah, Willie Burnside, Alonzo Graham. They had the dream team, and they won a lot of games. They came home with this championship in season 6, and the Wildcats won a championship in season 2. So both these two championship franchises going up against each other in the first round once again. This is going to be a huge matchup. 5-6 all time from the Wildcats from the home team's perspective, and 1-1 in the postseason. Both times it was in the Wildcat Stadium, and it's in the Wildcat Stadium again. Can the Piranhas, get comfortable on the road against this team and upset the big first overall offense with the first passing offense going against the fifth ranked passing defense is really the big things that stand on the board for me. The fourth ranked defense for the Piranhas. Their offense is definitely struggling though. How you see this game playing out, Demons?
What stands out to me when I look at this? So I look at it as the turnover battle. I think if the Wildcats protect the ball, this is going to be a blowout. Uh, that's the long and short of it. The Piranhas clearly don't put a lot of points on the board. They clearly don't move the ball a lot. but they are really good at winning the turnover battle. If they can get one or two turnovers deep in the Wildcats territory, score some points off of that, that's how they'll get in. That's how they'll stay in this game. That is far easier said than done. The
Absolutely.
Wildcats are explosive. Yet they have one of the deepest receiving cores, if not the deepest receiving core in the league. Aaron Horn had a great season. If it wasn't for Mike Davis, Aaron Horn would be talking about as the best running back in the league right now. So this is a team. They have Glenn Anderson on defense, anchoring that defense. I think the Wildcats. I personally I see them winning this one easily because that stipulation I made about turnover battle. I don't think that's going to happen. I think the Wildcats are going to run away with this one. But that's how the Piranha's going to have to rely on that aspect to win this game.
Yeah, the turnover differential is going to have to make a big difference, but it is quite different at +5 and -2 for the Wildcats. Um, the offense,
Also, too, this Piranhas team, this is not the Piranhas team that had all those playoff games.
no,
Like
it's not.
they had Jay Ballmer with a run, they had Alonzo Graham with Burnsides with a run. Like this is a different team, different quarterback. They had Courtney Mitchell at tight end. I mean, they still got Preston, but he's getting up there. He's long in the tooth now. Like this is a team that is not the Piranhas of old. These guys, like the Wildcats have been or their roster they've been running with for a while now. Like this is Pat Hall's Wildcats that are here, and we know what they are, and they've made a run, almost won a championship. Like this is a team. The Piranhas are a team on the decline against the top team, and I just see the Wildcats taking this one.
Yeah, Pat Hall and that receiving core, and with Aaron Horn now, the Wildcats finally figured out their running game, and Aaron Horn's had quite a few touchdowns. I believe his second in the league finishes for rushing touchdowns, and that's a deceiving. It says first in passing offense and eighth for rushing offense, but that eighth is very deceiving as it is such a close margin there up near the top. And the Wildcats running back Aaron Horn, like you saying, is having a career season and maybe one of the best seasons ever, if not ever, by a Wildcat in franchise history. So that's what they needed. Excuse me. That's what they needed because they were pass heavy like crazy, and if they can get that balance on offense, they're dangerous. And this and what I was gonna say is the ranks here speak for themselves with the number one ranked points per game and the number one ranked offense. That defense, though, they let up a lot of points. They're up there, top five, I believe, for most points allowed. They get in a lot of shootouts. And when the offense is out for the Piranhas and the defense is out for the Wildcats, it's going to be a scramble of who makes the bigger mistake, as both of them are ranked 15th. And I think that it's going to be a tough one when those two squads are out and see who can keep the mistakes on the minimal. Will the Piranhas make big mistakes on offense, or will the Wildcats defense make big mistakes on the matchups? Is really going to be the big, you know, the big decider there because, like we know, the Wildcats are going to put up points and they're going to score. And I don't know if that fourth ranked defense. It is really good though. You can't put it past them. They got some real ballers out there. A really good defense that carried them here. Um, and that's a big reason why they're here. And they beat the Gators last week in a really close game, and they deserve to be here. So this could have easily been the Gators versus the Piranhas. All right.
Well, I want to add on something you said there before you go to the next one because you're talking about the Wildcats defense, but they are the third rush defense. And I think that goes into how they play. The Wildcats will pour on the points and stop other teams from running the ball because in order to keep up with them, you have to start throwing.
Right.
Isaac Cobb is a big part of the Piranhas offense. Doesn't matter if that rush stat is 13th. Isaac Cobb is the big part. You will take him out of the game effectively by just scoring so many points that you can't run the ball anymore. And I
Right.
don't think the Piranhas have the firepower to keep up with that. That's why I come back to their defense is you mentioned their defense being the anchor, their fourth overall, third in turnovers. This is a team that needs to get a turnover on defense in order to make something happen. I still think the Wildcats are running away with it, but that was the last point I wanted to make.
Absolutely. I absolutely agree. This is going to be a great matchup. This will be their 14th game ever played against each other in franchise history, and this will be the including which will also be their third playoff game. So this is a big one. See who goes to the semifinals.
I
All
love the
right.
history, Johnny,
Yes,
especially when you
it's
get two teams that are around so long.
they've they've
It's
been
crazy
playing
how many
since
games they've played.
season one. Yeah, they've been playing every single season and have met twice now, three times in the playoffs. That's a rich history for sure. All right, drum roll. Here is the third seed and the sixth seed, and I can't believe how close of a season this has been. We got the Werewolves versus the Dragons, and what a matchup. And I can't believe how the Werewolves end up finishing in the third seed after all that is said and done.
Tiebreakers are a wonderful thing.
Unbelievable. Just unbelievable. The Werewolves win a nail biter right at the end against the Blue Jays, who had an incredible season and then fell off on the back half of the season. And the Werewolves had a bad first half of the season and then got hot at the right time. And Lester Frost and that veteran wide receiving core is doing great and got themselves 2 wins to get them into the playoffs, going against the Dragons, who have lost two. But Marcus McNeil for the Dragons has been playing absolutely incredible. I've been hating on him for the
Unless
last
you
few
count the last two
seasons,
weeks.
unless you're talking about the last 2 weeks. Against, yeah, he did not do good against the Bears, and he's been playing way above the best career season for him ever. Um, But their defense, man, their defense has been struggling. They let up a lot of points, and they've allowed a lot of points. Excuse me. And the Werewolves are a tough-nosed team. They look very different than they've ever looked. They were known for being a ground and pound team that had a really good passing and rushing defense, and but now they're very pass heavy with a very scat back kind of running back with Chris Jones completely changing his role in the offense. And the defense is definitely different. They're struggling to stop the run as well. They're more of a prevent defense, I believe, that they're in now. And but they still get these turnovers, and Lester Frost has had an extremely efficient season, keeping his turnovers down. And the defense has been able to turn the ball over and a couple game-winning interceptions right at the end of the game. The Werewolves had in multiple occasions. The Dragons, again, they have a really good defense that turns the ball over, but they've allowed so many points and so many yards. You just don't know what defense is going to show up on the road against these Werewolves. That offense for the Dragons is strong. When they can turn it on, they can go blow for blow with anybody as they've scored the third most points. The third for most points. They can really get it rolling when they're on. But who will win the defensive battle here with two teams that were known for seasons for their historic history for being for being defensive teams, and now are look quite different, looking like offensive teams. Their rich history, they've played for what was it 10 games they've played since season two. Um, they've never met in the playoffs before, and the Werewolves from the home field perspective, it's 4-6. So the Dragons are 6-4 all time in the regular season. Werewolves are 4-6 against them. They struggled in the first 6 matchups, going 1-5, and now the Werewolves have won the last 3 out of the last 4 games. So the Werewolves have definitely had the edge recently, but they do have a rich history. Werewolves are 3-4 in the playoffs all time, and the Dragons are 6-3 in the playoffs in all time, and the Werewolves have never won a semifinals game, and the Dragons have won 2 championships. So one team with a lot of playoff experience and and the edge on offense. The Werewolves are at home. They have a tough game here. What do you think, Demons? With your thoughts on this game and who you think will win?
I got a ton of thoughts, man. I got a ton of thoughts.
Let's hear it.
I'll start with the head-to-head. So season 2 to season 11, those losses that the Werewolves took. I mean, those are different Dragons teams. Those are good. Those are led by Brendan Platt. I think Eric Watson was in season 7, then they went to McNeil in 8. I'm not sure. Did they go to McNeil in 8? I mean, either way, as McNeil beat the Werewolves, it looks like to me 8, 10, 11 are McNeil years because 9 was Watson, right?
Ooh, good point.
So I don't think this is a tough test for him. This is a prove it game a little bit for him. Does he got what it takes to win in a big situation? With that said, Dragons defense has some ballers. Corey Wilson, unless I don't know all the stats from Week 15, but unless something crazy happened, Corey Wilson leads the league in interceptions and broke the record for interceptions this season. And he's going up against those veteran receivers for the Werewolves, who they're 32 years old. Like Corey Wilson's going to be all over one of them. And I expect Lester Frost is still a young QB. I expect Corey Wilson to be making some plays out there for that Dragons defense. The Dragons also have 98 overall Albert Mainter. One of the top, if not, he might be the top rated defensive end in the league. I don't think there's any, unless the Vipers got someone 99 that I'm not aware of again. But
No,
the
no, he is
Albert
the
Mainter can
highest.
take over a game.
Hmm.
Yeah, and that's a huge factor right there. And McNeil has a lot of weapons on offense to distribute the ball to. Todd Kidd, Barry Perkins he's still balling, even though he's another one of those older receivers. Travis Stovall, like these are guys that can make plays, move the football. I like what the Dragons can do to put up points. The Werewolves are they still have a stout defense, despite these numbers. I still think they have a stout defense. I don't look at them a whole lot differently in that regard. Lester Frost has changed the offense. They're a competent, effective offense now that makes big plays, makes timely plays. They never really had that with Brian Miller. Now they have it. That's why this team is a threat now to everyone in the league. I could see the Werewolves making a run this year, but I could also see the Dragons making a run. I like the Werewolves a little better. I think I think this is going to be a close one, but I think the Werewolves. I just think top to bottom, they're just. I like Frost better than I like McNeil. That's really what it comes down to because I think they both have really good defenses, really good, lot of playmakers on offense. I just like the QB better on the Werewolves, and that's why I think the Werewolves probably come out ahead by a little bit in this one. But it's going to be a tight game. This is going to be a good one.
Yeah, this is going to be a really good one. I agree. I thought the Blue Jays and Werewolves game was going to be a good one last week, and I feel this way too. The Werewolves are just battle tested. I feel like they're just a tough team that isn't afraid to take a few shots and been playing from behind and been playing down. And I feel like the Dragons are a little bit more dependent on the game to go a certain way. But again, will the playoff experience take over the home field advantage for the Werewolves? Is the real question. Can the Dragons turn it up and be different? They are 6-3 in the playoffs, and sometimes you just got to get there, and then the real side of the team really comes out and the momentum comes out. We'll see um, who's
Yeah,
gonna
because this
win.
is the team. This Dragons team is only 2 seasons removed from a championship. They're
Yeah,
season 9 champions. That's pretty much the same. Other than the QB, a lot of this roster is the same from that team that
right.
won that championship. So this is a team that can get it done.
Absolutely. I absolutely agree with you. All right. Perfect. Any final thoughts on this matchup?
Now that's going to be a wild one, man. That might be game of the week, but I know what the next one is. So I think the next one might be game of the week, in my opinion.
All right. If you don't already know who it is, here's the big reveal. Can't believe it. The CSFL
Let's
knew. The
go.
CSFL knew that we couldn't have a game like that last week and not have it again. Too good. So nice had to do it twice. The Rhinos and the Demons will face each other once again. Back to back weeks here in the
Can't ask
quarterfinals.
for anything better, man. You can't ask for anything better. That's awesome.
Absolutely incredible how this all lined up. All right. Here, let's go to
We just
the.
did this. Like we just did this analysis last week.
We just did this.
Same analysis. Yeah. I mean,
We
it was a
just did this.
48-47 game. That's like nothing's changed. Yeah.
The Rhinos beat the Demons by 1 point and hit their highest amount of points they ever scored on the Demons, which brings you back to season 4, week 11, when they put up 48-42 in a similar shootout type of style game. And week 15 in season 11 lived up to the hype and lived up to the videos. 48-47 on the road, but now the Rhinos are at home. They have a rich history. They've played 9 times in the regular season and once in the season 3 championship game. The Demons, the 9-4 Demons at the time, playing the 6-7 Rhinos, and the Demons won at home 33-28 in an absolute thriller that the Rhinos almost had a comeback, and but the Demons were dominant for the majority of that game. Rhinos though are 11-7. They have the most playoff wins ever with 11, and the Demons are 4-3. So the Demons beat the Rhinos in the championship game, but the Rhinos have been to 3 championship games, only losing to the Demons back in season 3. And they've won 2 championships back to back. And if it wasn't for the Demons, potentially could have had 3. I know that the Demons and the Rhinos is a great rivalry. It's going to be a great game. But I know that the Demons, have a sour taste, or should I say the Rhinos have a sour taste of the Demons for sure when it comes to the playoffs, as it hits a soft spot when you lose to a team in the championship game. That's like the ultimate trump card, right? So I think this is going to be really important for the Rhinos. I think the Rhinos really want to beat the Demons more than ever. I know obviously the Demons want to win too, and they got all the momentum right now rolling into this. I know they lost last week, but I think they still have all the momentum and have really figured out exactly what they want to do now. And they scored over 40 points in the 3 of their last or they scored 40 points in the 3 of the last matches out of 4 games that they played the Rhinos. Or the Rhinos have scored over 40 points every time they've played them in the last 4 matchups 3 times. So this is like a high shooting affair. When these two teams meet each other, I feel like they score a lot of points and they don't hold back. Look how close the offenses are and the points per game, like the Demons pointed out last week, by only 0.2% now. Only 0.2
Yeah, it
instead
was
of
point
point
one
0.1.
last week.
It was 0.1, now it's
Yeah.
0.2. They're so close. Defensive totals are so close, 10th and 8th. Their pass defense 13th and 14th. I think the big standout difference is the turnover differential. That's the biggest jump, because even the pass offenses are really close. I guess the total offense is 4 points, but everything's really close.
Yeah,
But
it's
that turnover
it's
differential.
127 yards, right? So it's like you're talking 10 yards a game difference between these guys.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Same with defense, you're talking 80 yards. I mean, that's like 5 yards a game. Like these teams, they allow the yardage is pretty much there, the same. Points are
Yeah,
pretty much the same. Turnovers is the biggest difference, and that happened in the game last week. The Rhinos got the turnovers when they needed them, and the Demons kept dropping interceptions. So what are you
yes,
gonna do? It's that's the difference. The Rhinos playmakers on defense made the plays.
that's right. And Tony Miller had 2 interceptions and had the game sealer and a defensive return touchdown in a tight game like that. That meant the that was the difference. And can the Rhinos do it again? Back to back. It is not easy to face the Demons back to back or the Rhinos back to back. Both of these teams got a full plate of boot leather that they're going to need to eat and chew, as this is going to be as tough as a $2 steak. I think this is going to be one of the toughest games, and I think that the winner of this game will go on to have a deep run, is my prediction. The Wolverines and the Bears, the Rhinos and the Demons are in one bracket. So if the Bears beat the Wolverines, they'll either have to play the Demons or the Rhinos. And the Wildcats and Piranhas and Dragons and Werewolves are in another bracket. So say the Dragons win, they'll either have to play the Piranhas or the Wildcats. So that's going to have there's a potential for a Demons and Bears rematch there. There's a potential for the Dragons and the Wildcats matchup there, as they played in the semifinals a couple times against each other as well. There's some big lineups, but these are the games so far, and we'll take a quick look at the standings. What's your thoughts on the playoffs as we look at these final standings here for the season 11 regular season? The Werewolves and the Piranhas have the same record, and one is in seventh and one is in third.
Yeah, anyone can win. Anyone can win this championship. I'm even saying the Wolverines can, even at 7-8, even though they're under 500. Like we all know what they did last year in the playoffs. Like they're with Johnny Romolo and Chad Grant. I mean, Bears are the favorite. They've had the best season. Wildcats, obviously, amazing season as well. But at the end of the day, I could see any of these teams making a run. Maybe, well, if I honestly, I think the Piranhas are probably the least likely to make a run out of the group. No, that's not trying to throw anything negative their way. It's just my thought on it. But
Of
you
course.
see fire in a lot of these teams. They have that. They all have that capability to pull out a win in that last minute of the game. Like there's going to be a lot of these games that come down to just last possession. I feel like, and that's
Yeah, I
going to be
agree.
awesome. I think these playoffs are going to be thrilling, man. They're going to be a thrilling playoff. Like this is going to be. I think the playoffs are going to be just as competitive as the season was.
Wow. Look at the way it played out. Incredible. Let's take a look at the bottom here. Teams that didn't make it: Blue Jays, Monsters, Gators, Scorpions, and Panthers, and the Wolverines all finished with 7-8 tie, and the Wolverines get the tiebreaker, and the Blue Jays just missed the playoffs. They had an incredible season and fell off on the back half of the season, and it just went to disaster and losing a close one to the Werewolves in the last week of the season. Monsters, devastating loss to the Panthers. They lost by 1 point. The scoreboard couldn't even handle it. It broke because they were so devastated in the Monster Stadium. They needed that win, and they had, I believe they were 4-2. They had a great start in the but were unable to win it in the back half. The Gators again, 5 losses in a row to finish the season. The defending champions are out of the playoffs at the Gators, so there will be a new champion this season. Scorpions couldn't be more opposite. They had a terrible first half of the regular season, and then really turned things around with Billy Beer League Francis and Coach Henny coming up, and they
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 almost did it.
rallied. They rallied quite a few
Yeah.
wins, and they almost did it. They one more win in the first half of that season, and they would have did it. But they just missed short, and find themselves at
Anyone
the
that was
12th
paying
seed.
attention to them in the back half of the season would have they would have been a scary team in the playoffs. They like 100%. If they would have made it, they would have been a scary team.
I
That team
agree.
was on fire down the stretch.
They were. I agree. I think the Scorpions really were. Yeah, no, Coach Henny did a great job in figuring out what he had to do, and Billy Francis has really taken the corner, and he's got great wide receivers, and the Scorpions' defense is very underrated. Panthers played spoiler. They had a great season and then really fell off, and they only had six wins going into the final week, and they beat the Monsters, their rivals, by 1 point. The bittersweet win and victory beating the Monsters, but knowing that you can't make it either. But the Panthers
Yeah,
have a very promising
I go down,
offense.
I'm taking you with me.
Yeah, I'm going down, I'm taking you with me kind of mentality. And I guess that's a great, if you're going to get out of the playoffs, you're not going to make the playoffs. At least you kind of stuck it to your rival, I guess. Poor PJ. But if Jay Bomber had it and he got him by 1 point to spoil the Monsters' dreams of making the playoffs for the first time. Ouchie. The
I
Vipers.
thought the Monsters were gonna make it, man. I
I
thought they were gonna
thought
make it,
I
but I
thought
did
so
actually.
too. Yeah.
I will
Yeah.
say this, man. In our video a few days ago, I did say that I thought the Wolverines were the team that was gonna be the lock, and
It's true.
there they are.
Yeah.
Although they lost, so never mind.
They
They
did
lost,
lose.
right?
They did. They
Yeah.
lost to the Vipers
Sorry, Keegan. My bad.
by 3 points. And yeah, the Vipers ended up having a really bad season, and it was just a little too much too late, or should I say, it was just a little too late. They couldn't pull it together, and the Vipers end up having a top three draft pick now, which is incredible. The Gorillas
That's
finish.
scary.
That is
Vipers with
scary.
top 3 pick is scary.
That is scary. Yeah, Vipers gonna have a top three pick, man. Gorillas also had a rough season. Their running back actually did really well, and their quarterback, young quarterback, did really well, but their defense just could not stop anything. 471 points allowed. I believe that's the most, almost 500 points in 15 games. Um, and then the
They'll be
Cobras,
able to shore up that defense next season. Like they're gonna get a top draft pick, like one of the top draft picks here in their,
yeah,
first 2 rounds. You're gonna get 2 quality starters, at least, and they're gonna shore up that defense. The girls will get there.
yeah, Gorillas, they got the second overall pick in the season 12 draft, and the Cobras end up getting the first overall pick in season 12 draft. The Cobras had a very great defense that shined at a lot of games, kept a lot of teams really close. They lost 10 games, but a lot of them were not, over 30 points. The defense really kept them in, but the offense really struggled as James Tompkins had one of his worst career seasons at running back. The wide receivers couldn't figure out who was playing at quarterback, and the quarterback carousel continues for the Cobras as they've rotated four different quarterbacks in season 11.
That's classic Cobras, though. They made a championship rotating quarterbacks. Like that's what they do.
That's just what they do. All right, and that's the big reveal. So next week, stay. If you've made it this far, thank you so much for watching the video, and I hope you are excited about these matchups just as much as we are. Next weekend, we'll be playing these matchups, and don't go anywhere, and please stay tuned. And I hope you enjoy the games. Final thoughts, Demons, on season 11 playoffs.
Well, yesterday there were 16 teams alive. 6 days from now, there's going to be 4. Welcome to CSFL. Let's
Wow,
go.
that's tough. Hey, that's ruthless. All right, guys.
Ruthless.
Ruthless. Welcome to CSFL. Ruthless. All right, guys. Have a good night. Thanks for watching.